Joy Nostalg, and happy 13th year anniversary. 13, yeah, I know, right? So it is July 2020. We have reached the halfway mark of a tumultuous 2020, and we begin the second half of the year. It was an extremely disruptive and difficult first half of the year, which includes a World War III scare, the geopolitical tensions between China and USA, that were further complicated with bilateral issues between both countries and the Philippines. We had the eruption of Taal volcano, the crisis of weaponized laws, media liberties, and fake news, the COVID-19 health pandemic, and of course, the COVID-19 economic fallout. All these overlapping and continuing crises have caused too much losses in lives and in economy, and have contributed too much suffering and pains. Never in anyone's lifetime did anyone expect nor experience such rapid global devastation in just months, similar to this COVID-19. As we, the world, the Philippines, our communities, families, and ourselves are going through daily life challenges, life just became immensely, perhaps even insanely more challenging and chaotic due to the coronavirus disease 2019. As the COVID-19 infection and death rates are still rising in the Philippines, we are facing a much more difficult way of life as we ease out of various forms of community quarantine, with even greater risks and problems than when we started heeding caution. Unfortunately, the worst is not yet over. It has not even come yet, and life will be more bitter before it will become better. Last January 2020, Joy Nostalg took COVID-19 seriously and started understanding it from news coming from overseas without dependency on local news and advisories. We immediately organized, prepared, and effective protective health protocols last January 27, just a few days after China effected the first COVID-19 lockdown in the world. As we took action, we were comforted that the Philippines only saw 3 foreign-related COVID cases in January and a relatively uneventful February. Yet, we continued preparing for the worst, and the world in February started being infected. Then March arrived and the COVID-19 was regarded and belatedly declared as a pandemic by the World Health Organization. The Philippines suddenly experienced COVID-19 through local community transmissions, and our epidemic officially began. Our government declared the whole Luzon in lockdown last March 15 with a general community quarantine status, which abruptly became the paralyzing enhanced community quarantine only 2 days later on March 17. And life was never the same ever. We were supposed to be free of ECQ by April 12, but it got its first extension to April 30. Then a second extension again until May 15. Effective May 16, the ECQ was downgraded to a modified general community quarantine to May 31. Starting June 1 to 15, NCR was placed back to an East general community quarantine, but it had its first GCQ extension to June 30 and again a second extension from July 1 to 15. And unfortunately, with Cebu going back to ECQ from last June 16 and further extended to July 15. As of June 30, it has been 3 months and 2 weeks that we are experiencing COVID-19 and encountering various forms of debilitating lockdowns, with unfortunately having 37,514 positive cases and 1,226 COVID-19 caused death. And while we were and still are fighting a rising health crisis, our country is now simultaneously fighting our worst economic crisis in the last 3 decades. with the Philippines officially under recession beginning July 2020. The GDP is expected to contract down to negative 5.7% or even lower to 6.7% by end of June, with the first quarter GDP contracting by 0.2%. The Philippines had its all-time record low unemployment rate just last December at 4.5%, the lowest ever. The lowest unemployment rate was recorded December 2019 at 4.5%. Then, in a blink of an eye, as of April, just over 3 months after, we experienced our country's all-time high employment rate of 17.7%. Can you imagine that? The unemployment rate just went up by more than 4 times. As of April, just over a month of lockdown, 7.3 million Filipinos were jobless. The Labor Department gave an estimate last March that there will be 10 million jobless Filipinos by December. Unfortunately, the estimate is turning to be a gross underestimation. And adding insult to injury, of those that were still employed last April, 38% of them, or 13 million workers, were not even working, and thus were not getting paid. They are employed. There are 13 million workers that are employed, but they are not working, which means they are not getting paid. Thankfully, 33.7 Filipinos were still employed. However, while 7.3 million were unemployed and 33.7 million were employed as of April, that only accounts for 41 Filipinos out of a total Filipino work population of 74 million, which means there is only a 55% labor force participation rate. And this is from a total of our population of 109 million. This means that some 67 million Filipinos, too young or too old to be working, or were simply without opportunity to even have a job in the first place. This further means that for every one Filipino fortunate to be working, he or she is working to support at least 2 other fellow Filipinos, or an average of 3 persons, including himself or herself. So, with the minimum wage to be at 537 pesos a day, it would theoretically mean that each person in the Philippines must survive within just 179 pesos a day. For perspective, a popular one-piece chicken meal would already cost 90 pesos. Yet, as of July 2020, we are just at the start of the Philippine recession. You know, I am an optimist. However, I am a realist as well. And the reality I foresee we shall have is one that is not as optimistic as I would usually be.
Despite having the world's longest lockdown, 3.5 months in going, our country has not yet been able to extensively mass test a general sampling of the population in a widely infected geography. COVID-19 testing, for the most part, is limited by our healthcare infrastructure to only confirm COVID-19 positive cases and not to identify community or cluster outbreaks to enable a methodical contact tracing, isolation, and treatment program. As such, it is not clear where and how the virus is spreading, and thus we cannot have a tactical strategy to decisively contain the contagion. Therefore, infection and death rates continue to increase without any clear sign nor plan on how to restrict, if not lower, the spread of this invisible disease. Yet, our failing economy, our suffering population, requires us to get out of whatever isolation or quarantine and make a living to survive, to support our families, our elderly, our children. In other words, we need to live with the morbid threat of COVID-19 as we simultaneously strive to work and somehow improve our economic necessities despite having many enterprises, small and large, contracting or closed already. The Labor Department reported a minimum of 2,068 establishments have been closed, solely due to COVID-19 quarantine period from mid-March to May 2020. In truth, we need to doubly strive to survive the disease crisis and survive the economic crisis at the same time, with far less resources than ever before. And as if we are our worst moment, we are not yet. Just in the last few days of June, the Philippines has 3 alert level 1 volcanoes, namely Taal, Mayon, and Canlaon. A new threat of G4 strain swine flu is looming, and we are entering our regular typhoon season with the usual threat of flooding and mudslide, property and crop destruction, and dengue. Perhaps we need to strive exponentially.
Today, there is no proven medicine to cure COVID-19, with most recovery highly dependent on individual biological resistance and immunity. While there are many promising drugs in current use, at best, they only help in recovery but not directly cure the disease. Similarly, there is no vaccine available. It has been only 6 months that the world experienced COVID-19, and vaccine development is estimated to require 18 to 24 months, at least making a vaccine optimistically available by mid-2021 or start 2022. With a global infection at 10 million plus cases and death at 500,000 plus victims, the USA accounts for 2.5 million plus infected Americans and 125,000 plus dead Americans, or 25% of global COVID-19 infections and deaths. The USA is desperate for a vaccine, just as the rest of the world is, especially a third world economy such as ours. Recently, American medical experts are considering accepting a vaccine with only 70% effectiveness rate instead of the ideal 100%, in the hope that such lowered effective vaccine may be discovered and produced earlier than mid-2021 and be implemented to halt their desperate situation.
As of early June 2020, WHO reported that a total of 149 vaccines are under research, with 10 and even 17 are in human trial stages, 5 from China, 4 from USA, and 1 from UK. None of the 149 vaccines being developed are from the Philippines. While 149 candidate vaccines are underway in 6 months from the official discovery of COVID-19, it must be noted that MERS-CoV and SARS, both of similar coronavirus disease, has no vaccine yet since 2012 and 2003 respectively, and since 1987, HIV, AIDS have yet to discover an effective vaccine as well. Thus, there is zero guarantee that a vaccine for COVID-19 may surface. Hopefully it will, but hope alone is not a strategy. And considering that a vaccine would indeed successfully materialize, when and how would a vaccine in the quantity of 109 million units be budgeted, purchased, imported, distributed, and administered nationwide across Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao? Will the Philippines have the equal opportunity as the USA, China, UK, and other nations developing the vaccine to have the vaccine even? Our priority, timetable, and budget is unknown. Then again, are these the 100 effectiveness rated vaccines or lesser, which will obviously result in permanence of the virus for years ahead? Additionally, will the whole national population, albeit the world population, agree to a vaccine even if it's for free? Expectedly, there will be valid concerns. for the unknown long-term detrimental side effects of the vaccine, as the vaccine would have been rushed and would not have the benefit of time to mature the pharmaceutical evidence of its long-term effectiveness and safety. As such, COVID-19 in the Philippines will most likely exist far longer than expected, certainly beyond 2020, and even perhaps beyond 2021. How long? Scientific experts advise to assume COVID-19 will linger in the Philippines and the world until 2022, and beyond perhaps. I hope not, but then again, hope is not a strategy. Regardless of the uncertainty, one thing that is sure is that the drastic lifestyle and cultural changes in the past 3 months is going to become more permanently normal than temporarily abnormal.
So what now? Perhaps, what then? What's next? My Joy Nostalg colleagues, friends, brothers and sisters, I share my most fundamental insight. Life lives. Life lives on and long. Life took a turn, and we need to find the new path onwards. In my silence, I have my thoughts and plans to share with you. I pray that these thoughts, which I shall call into action, are wise, loving, and blessed. As I call you into action, let us pray as one Joy Nostalg in CHRISTUDE, that we may have the courage to love willfully and do what is good wisely, as we are called by God. And in this pandemic, we are called to shine our light and radiate our love. Thankfully, we are blessed to do so. In the first week of the lockdown, despite the uncertainty, Joy Nostalg has remained committed to secure everyone, health-wise and income-wise, for the entire unknown duration of the lockdown and the crisis. We adopted a work-from-home condition, even if not everyone could effectively do so. Yet, all compensation continued as usual, with all leave benefits remaining intact and untouched, including releases of cash conversions of previous year's unveiled sick leaves. And to those of us that had to render essential work at our workplaces when required and allowed, additional allowances and bonuses were extended, including transportation and accommodation to minimize exposure. And even when transportation was available, we continued to protect our welfare by having those needing to be at our place be accommodated at our hotel. Aside from these, we have equipped our workplaces with comprehensive healthcare protocols, including continued information dissemination and daily monitoring of all of our health status. And more aggressively, we have actively provided multiple COVID-19 testing to all at the workplaces to allow for immediate tracing and treatment to those affected. With the testing, many of us have been put to ease, knowing our good health. With all these measures, thankfully, none of us were ever infected in our workplace for the entire first half of 2020. Let us continue to be vigilant for our own health and that of others, and heed these protocols for all our safety. We are indeed fortunate and blessed, and we have much to be very thankful for. Our good health for each new day, our livelihoods constantly providing, and having each other and our families in these times of crisis. Despite all hardships experienced by so many outside our bounds, we were and we are truly blessed by God to have much safety and security. Truly, we are blessed because we are called.
As we are called, we extended our Joy Nostalg to others. Apart from figuring out how we are to operate under a very abnormal situation and simultaneously protecting ourselves, we took upon ourselves without solicitation to support the COVID-19 frontliners by donating foodstuff and essential surgical masks and surgical gloves that we had to source abroad given the shortage locally. We have extended our support to all LGUs where we are operating, namely in Pasig, Bulacan, Rizal, Cavite, Laguna, Iloilo, General Santos, Agusan del Sur, Bukidnon, including key hospitals in NCR, Philippine General Hospital, Medical City, St. Luke's Medical Center, Cardinal Santos Medical Center, and Chinese General Hospital, and with the first private public quarantine center, San Juan COVID-19 Kalinga Center. We partnered with Caritas Manila and supported their Valiant Feeding program for 3,000 urban poor families worth over 10 million pesos. However, in all these, we made sure that those closer to us are equally well supported and cared for. Hence, all obligations were duly paid without question to our business partners, contractors, suppliers, and brokers. Even bank loans and government taxes were paid, despite the legal allowable respite. In fact, to our contractors, we have extended interest-free loans for them to support food and accommodation for about 1,000 laborers that were stranded in our project sites. Ultimately, we extended our support to our Pasinaya and Pagsibol housing communities. Despite having no commercial nor legal obligation ties anymore, and donated a 20-kilogram rice pack to about 2,000 families in Naik, Cavite. And more. Once qualified to publicly operate during the NECQ, we immediately partnered with Pag-ibig and facilitated about 1,800 completed houses to allow for immediate house turnover to our homeless beneficiaries, eager to escape their congested, infectious environment, to favor our Pasinaya homes and Pagsibol villages. Let us be grateful and humble. We are well and alive. We are strong. Express gratitude that we have the opportunity to help others and simultaneously preserve our health, our livelihood, and our Joy Nostalg culture. Let us indeed thank our Father for His blessings of wisdom, faith, and love. And let us humbly thank and faithfully love unceasingly, for His love for us is first, always, and unconditional.
Joy Nostalg 2020 strategy. As Joy Nostalg is blessed and called, we are to respond equivalent to the light God has shown and to the love God has radiated. We will continue to faithfully fulfill our mission to home the homeless homeful, EDU, to power the powerless, EDU, to host happiness to the habituate, SBU, to resource the restless, RMU, and above all, to empower joy, dignity, and hope to all our beneficiaries, FDU. We are to create moments of happiness for memories of hope. We are to spark joy moreover. We are Joy Nostalg. We are to be Joy Nostalg. In fulfilling our mission, we will lovingly respond to our calling. Our answer, Luciat lux et ferviat amor. In greater reality, Joy Nostalg will habituate with COVID-19. We will live, work, and laugh with COVID-19. We will parry its threats, and we will pursue its opportunities. We shall not cower in hopeful imagination for solutions, but rather, we will imagine hopeful solutions courageously. Therefore, while we strive to habituate with the realities of COVID-19, we will thrive by choosing to succeed.
First, we must be always ready and able, notwithstanding the ubiquity of COVID-19. To choose success, we must secure health. A. Knowledge is key. Let us empower ourselves with COVID-19 related news and information coming from different credible sources around the world, applying its learnings to protect ourselves and plan for its consequences. We will surpass this crisis not with ignorance, indifference, and incoherence, but with intelligence. Armed with genuine knowledge, ensure that we share them with others for their own security as well. The wider the field of knowledge, the wider the shield of protection.
B. Distancing and disinfection. The simplest way to protect ourselves from the virus is simply to have as much distance as possible, at least 1 meter apart from its source. Hence, the physical and social distancing that is recommended and required by scientific and medical experts. Barring the entry of the virus to our respiratory system is to simply block the entry paths through our mouth, nose, and eyes, and thus the importance of always wearing a mask, protective eye cover, and practicing the proper cough etiquette. And to further ensure non-contamination is to avoid crowded spaces, enclosed places, and close contact interaction. Aside from preventing the virus, is to eliminate it if and while it is on our body surface and on high-touch surfaces, and thus the importance to constantly hand wash with soap or to use alcohol to disinfect the hands and other body surfaces that may lead to our faces. The use of gloves is a way to protect our hands from surface contamination when surface can't be avoided, and always disinfect the surfaces that we would always come into contact with.
C. Testing and tracing. We shall take an active position on testing by the periodic use of rapid antibody testing combined with the confirmatory real-time polymerase chain reaction test to be administered to those of us reporting to our workplaces outside our homes. Testing will allow us to proactively identify those that are well from those that are infected and for immediate isolation for the safety of others and the corresponding treatment. Testing will further allow for contact tracing to inform others of possible contamination and for their immediate appropriate treatment response from home quarantine to hospital care. However, testing may not be sustainable if the pandemic prolongs, given it may be prohibitively expensive at some point. As such, daily strict adherence to honestly accomplishing our health declaration form is the most practical, easy, and cost-effective way of testing and tracing. As such, keep in mind that testing is actually the last line of defense to guard against COVID-19, with our knowledge being the first line of security.
B. Fitness and food. Individually, let us make greater efforts to adopt a much healthier and active lifestyle with proper food and fitness regimen. When all things fail and we unfortunately contract the disease, recovery will then be entirely dependent on how healthy our body is. Hence, let's get physical. I know I have.
E. Islands of immunity. By now, we would have certain patterns of routines and routes that we habitually undertake that is relatively safe consistently over time. If such is realistically sustainable, then preserve it as our safe zones. This is not to allow one a respite of complacency, but rather to empower one with a reliable path that can be safeguarded consistently. These spaces, with a company of trusted friends and family, are like islands of refuge, providing a degree of immunity against contamination, given the strict adherence to health protocols. Furthermore, like islands, secure it with vigilance, as it can easily be compromised. Discover our island and protect it, such as our very own Joy Nostalg Center.
Second, to pursue success, we shall strengthen fundamentals. A. Work from home and isolated multiple teams. Apart from securing our health, we need to face the need to secure our livelihood. This means that we have to get back at 100% capacity in all the work necessary, yet ensuring a 100% level of safety for all our health. To do so, we shall have anyone that can work from home be required to work from home. The rest shall be working at their respective necessary workplaces. In said workplaces, we shall form as many self-sustaining teams as possible and work independently, isolated from each other to ensure distancing is followed. This calls for the company to invest in expanded office space as well as internet connectivity.
As the economy is much threatened, our revenues will ever be so as well. Hence, we must give our utmost considerations and concern to collectively save on costs that are truly essential. We shall further place great attention to generating all inflows as early and complete as possible, especially in all accounts receivables, the construction completion of houses, and corresponding loan releases. Our cost and cash flow management must be aggressively managed to ensure our liquidity in these very uncertain times.
C. Digitalize or despair. We need to convert all our work processes and customer interface into automated digital form in order for us to continue to be accessible to the market, our customers, and business partners. We need to digitalize. Otherwise, we will perish from the loss of communication and relationship in a crisis requiring people to be distant from each other. We need to effect our digital revolution across our business model and our organization and truly be a digital enterprise.
Brand building. In an era where our market will encounter business services initially by digital means, it is imperative that our brand is known for our market to remember us, to prefer us. When customers go online, we should not abdicate our excellence to a chance search by the market, but rather, our customers must know our brand so that they will patronize us even in a sea of competition. Hence, in all things we execute and complete, we always have to make every moment a brand building opportunity to consistently enhance our brand values and recognition for our markets. We need to build our Joy Nostalg brand identity into a household name.
E. Integrity and unity. Now more than ever before, we need to be unified with integrity, as we need to trust and be trusted in our work over the distance separating us. We need to come together regardless. We need to keep our integrity of the highest standard for our customers and business partners, to empower them to continue relying on our relationship at a time when even a simple handshake is not possible. To be trusted, we must be trustworthy together.
Third, to ensure success, we shall share compassion. In Joy Nostalg, we will always have the poor center in our endeavors, with businesses that will always be a social business. We will always ensure that Joy Nostalg will be a spiritually centered, socially missioned business platform enterprise. Compassion for others will be at the heart and soul of Joy Nostalg. And Joy Nostalg, compassion is defined as thinking with our hearts and feeling with our minds, meaning that we will always take a holistic approach in our business solutions, in serving our customers, moreover, our beneficiaries. To this extent, we shall have our middle housing learn, and apply our social housing experience. Our middle housing projects will accommodate a Grace Equity program, which allows for low and affordable equity and immediate early move-in to their new homes within 6 months for houses and 12 to 18 months for condominiums. Through our Joy Nostalg Foundation, we shall initially aim to annually house 50 homeless families that are below the poverty line, below the social housing market segment. We will accomplish this by having our middle housing developments donate its revenues for this purpose. We will partner with like-minded NGOs, church institutions, and the DSWD to conduct the proper selection of the said beneficiaries.
Our energy enterprise will remain committed to the welfare of our host communities and environment. As demonstrated during this lockdown period, providing food and protection to our frontliners and the marginalized in the community. Simultaneously, we shall be a continuing source of jobs and livelihood for the communities and careers to its children.
Our hospitality endeavors, hotel, office, and restaurant will remain steadfast in showcasing our Filipino culture to our global guests and bridging the cultural divide in order to foster a larger community of tolerance, acceptance, and respect to one another, regardless of differences, and foster friendships, more so because of our similarities.
Fourth, to achieve success, we shall strategize opportunities. Despite the abrupt, uninspiring, and discouraging environment we will be experiencing for months and years, despite the serious threat to our economy, despite the fundamental weakness we have, Joy Nostalg will pursue the great opportunities that abound and counter whatever threats to our prosperity. We will expand our current businesses and we will create new ones. A. Housing. We will maintain our 2020 target, focus on our loan releases with pag-ibig of 10 billion pesos. We will expand our construction capability by investing in more construction technology and contractor capacity, and complete all houses of all our project inventory this year. We will continue to build our land reserves and secure a standard of having at least 3 years' worth of developable land inventory across all markets of socialized housing, low economic housing, mid-economic housing, high economic housing, low middle housing, and upper middle housing, including for condominiums, and all located across Bulacan, Rizal, Laguna, and Cavite. We will continue to develop our organization and establish 2 property development companies, with one to manage our northern markets and another for the southern markets. We will be unfazed by this crisis, and we will not slow down. In fact, we will only even be more aggressive. Our confidence in housing lies in the fundamental fact that our business model is a highly demanded fit in the market, and that the housing market is one that is widely underserved. Even with the debilitating crisis, the 5 million housing market demand is very much sustainable, with housing or single-family dwelling units being the very fundamental solution to COVID-19 in the Philippines setting. To counter the widespread congestion of informal and disorganized urban settlement conditions, beyond profits, we will be measured by our impact on the people.
B. Energy. We will pursue new energy developments that are necessary to grow the economy. The key is to develop cheap and practical energy sources responsibly, and we will, as we have. But more importantly, we will pursue the synergy of both our energy and housing businesses and develop a most innovative and sustainable power source to energize the economy, but more so to power the poor and powerless. This is a most exciting endeavor we shall undertake, as this will be a game changer in both the energy and housing industries. Beyond profits, we will be measured by our impact to the planet.
C. Diversification. Fortunately, this crisis, this early in our history, has shown the vulnerabilities of relying on a sales-only business model. As our housing enterprise and a regulatory constricted business model, as our energy enterprise. Thus, it is imperative that we respond to these exposed threats, expand and diversify our business to a recurring lease model with the least regulatory constrictions. We shall pursue recurring incomes by investing in office developments and industrial warehousing for the corporate markets. We shall invest in dormitories to cater to the mass-based, low-income markets. We shall leverage our existing energy and housing business and either backward integrate in key materials or forward integrate with e-commerce, financing, and transportation.
For Joy Nostalg to realize these increased opportunities and capacities, we need to constantly attract and search for the good and right talent, as well as develop those already within us with promising character and competence. We will need to seriously embark in an aggressive organization development strategy. We shall focus on leadership development, management development, and entrepreneurship development. These three key programs will be housed in a Joy Nostalg University in order to assure excellence and sustainability. The opportunity for growth is indeed with Joy Nostalg, and we will need to harness our values and value our people for our collective and shared growth.
Culture. As we face this great health and economic crisis, all the more we need to be steadfast, strong, and singular. Beyond our organizational professionalism, we must be one. One in direction, one in passion, and one in culture. To have division is to have certain death. Nobody will survive, much less thrive, in this once-in-a-100-year crisis alone. If we are to thrive, we need to be together. And it will be our nurtured and shared culture that will bring us together forever. Let us therefore value our culture, our heritage and history, and move forward with commitment and courage with our cultural identity. For this objective, we will further expand the application of the Joy Nostalg Leadership Formation Program to all leaders of Joy Nostalg. In addition, we shall embark on creating a Joy Nostalg Culture Formation Program for all persons in Joy Nostalg. With our CHRISTUDE values in the center, surely our Joy Nostalg culture will empower us to overcome our immense challenges and come out as victors for ourselves, heroes for our family, friends for our customers, brothers for our partners, and most especially children for our Father.
Fifth, and above all, of most importance, is to enjoy success. We shall stay faithful. Let us offer ourselves in prayer to be instruments of His will, stewards of His grace, and witnesses of His love. Let us shine our light and radiate our love for our families, for others, for our Father. In our silence, let us reflect on how we can see Him more clearly, love Him more dearly, and follow Him more nearly. God wills us to live and love. With CHRISTUDE, we will. I seek our calm clarity for cooperation, compliance, and compassion for our collective plans and goals. Let us execute completely, decisively, and excellently. Hope is not a strategy, but our will is. Then, what is bitter will become better. 2020 will certainly be extraordinary, for we will strive and thrive in utmost eustress, joyfully fulfilling our mission and in a path answerable to our calling. Together, Joy Nostalg 2020 will be an odyssey to remember, our lucky 13th anniversary. Let's enjoy. God bless Joy Nostalg with wisdom, faith, and love. With wisdom we will know, with faith we will believe, with love we will act. Let us pray. And on behalf of my father, Chairman Jacinto Nang Sr., my dearest mother, Anita Nang, my beloved children, Jakey, Joey, Josh, and Ania, together with my first and always, Rachel, thank you very much to each and every one of us at Joy Nostalg. Our loving gratitude from our family to yours. Happy anniversary, Joy Nostalg. Congratulations to all of us. Mabuhay. Tayong lahat. Mabuhay, Joy Nostalg. And spark joy forever.